my budget to the town board, which is now the town's tentative budget until it's adopted at our voting meeting this month. We do have one other discussion tonight about a New York State, New York Forward grant, which we'll do last. So 2026 budget, it is completed. It was a hard one, a little harder than usual, I can say. Thank you to Controller Mark Posniak, his staff. Thank you to all the department heads, all the employees for all your help, all the collaboration I've had with you to put the budget together. Happy with the budget? I should say I am. I was dreading it because of, I should say, the high inflation that we've had, right? New York State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli sends out a list of what is the inflation rates to all of us, and you know, they do like a 3-year, 4-year look back. In 2022, the average was 4.4%. 2023, 7.8%. 2024, 4.5%, and so far this year, 3.1%. So it is challenging when you have high inflation like that. Everything goes up, as we all know, right? We have our own budgets at home that are tough to manage as well. And also the town, sometimes we worry about potential lower the amount of revenues that we realize in the town, but the town is in excellent fiscal shape. So this is a very well-balanced budget that we have, I have created for the town board to review, and then for our residents. To do the budget is the most important job of the town board. This is why we are here. We take it very seriously, and I'm very happy to say we are very strict stewards of the public's money. As you know, town of East Fishkill, we are one of the lowest, or I should say the lowest, have the lowest tax rate in all of the Tri-County area with a full-time police department. And that's something to be proud of, because public safety is very expensive, and the next town that has a low tax rate compared to ours with a full-time police department is more than double our tax rate. So I am proud of that. We do stretch our dollars, and I can't do it without a good staff. So thank you again to all the staff, all the employees who work very hard. We have a total proposed budget for 2026, including special districts, almost $35 million. East Fishkill, as I said, we have never broken the New York State mandated tax cap. I'm happy to say this budget included, even with the 40-year high inflation and 20-year high interest rates, we will still not exceed the cap. But we don't know what future budgets will look like. I'm just happy 1 year at a time right now to do these, but we don't know if we will ever break the tax cap. I hope not. But there are many municipalities. I'm very active with Dutchess County Supervisors and Mayors Association of Dutchess County, and I do poll them, ask them. There are several towns breaking the tax cap in Dutchess County. I was recently on a meeting with the New York State Association of Towns. I asked the question as well because the topic was budgets, and roughly 30% of all towns in New York State break the tax cap every single year. So that's not a problem we have for now. All I can say is that we just got to make sure we keep within our budgets, each department, and we should not have a problem. The problem is the cost and rising of all the other external factors like health insurance, pension benefit increases. Of course, we have unions, so we have salary agreements that we have to adhere to. So it does get tricky. It is a tough time to be here with the increased fuel costs, insurance. Everything we buy, just like you at home, is increased. So multiply that by as much as we buy, right, with almost $35 million budget, and everything is higher. So one budget at a time. This budget is under the cap, and I'm very proud of that. We're looking for a typical property to have about a 1.6% increase, which relates to about $20 a year, or as I always like to say, less than a slice of pizza a month. Keep in mind that the actual levy increase is about 2.2%, but because of the growth in town, new construction and other items, the current taxpayers will pay only 1.6% of that increase, which is the $20 a year. The rest is by the new growth. And the new growth does include now the industrial development down at the east and west campuses. Everybody knows about the Amazon, Stellantis, and Frito-Lay projects. Actually, Frito-Lay will not be, their pilot payment will begin next year for 2026. I'm sorry, it won't be till 2027 tax roll, because they have received their final CO in August of this year, and the final roll was calculated in March. So at that time, they will be on for the 2026 school tax roll and the 2027 town and county roll. So what does this mean with the pilots? It means that there is more tax revenue for the towns, the county, the school district. And let me discuss pilots for a moment. Pilot is a payment in lieu of taxes. Okay, and that is granted by the Dutchess County IDA, the Industrial Development Agency. They approve pilots for these large projects that come, and they give them, and really what a pilot is, it's an assessment agreement contract. They agree on an assessed value, and then they agree on a reduction in that assessed value for a term of how many years, 10, 15 years, depends, each one is different. But basically they get that because they are promising a large investment, they are promising a large amount of jobs, so on and so forth. So in the early years of a pilot, like we have with Amazon and Stellantis now, we're in for only the first few years of the pilot payments, we are at their largest tax assessment decrease. So as the years go on, their assessment goes up, the tax payments to the school district, the town, and the county increase. So once we get to the middle and of course towards the end of those pilots, it will be very beneficial for all the current taxpayers. We'll see a great amount of taxes come into the town. Now, as everybody knows, the largest benefactor of these pilots is the school district because they have the largest percentage of the whole entire tax bill, roughly 74%. So, as I said, these pilots are beneficial towards the later years and very beneficial for the school district now. They are paying hundreds and hundreds of thousands towards the school district, even with the lowest amount of assessments that they have currently because it's the beginning of their agreement. So many people ask me, how come the pilots don't lower our taxes? Well, just like I said, increases, we always have an increase of something. Insurance costs, costs for medical, costs for pensions, costs for our employees. So how do we offset that? We have new taxpayers. We have these pilots, these projects that come in, and what happens is that they just lower the amount of an increase that we would pay at home. So if we have to pay, this year we are looking at roughly a $1.4 million increase in the amount that we're spending because of pensions, because of insurance, and because of contractual obligations. So you add that up and you minus what they are going to pay for these pilots, then that's what the rest of the taxpayers pay. If they weren't there, then we would pay the full share. So does it lower your taxes? No, but it lowers the amount that we would have to pay anyway. So hopefully in the next few years, when we get to the middle years and we get to the later years of these pilots, it will be much, much better, and I can't wait for that. So I will go into more detail of pilot payments at our budget public hearing, which will be in 2 weeks at our regular town board meeting, just to show what projections are and so you can see what dollar amounts are. We will be using some fund balance for the 2026 budget, roughly about $300,000 from the general fund and $190,000 from the highway fund. Our fund balance is pretty much as high as it can be. Based upon the opinion of the New York State Controller, Tom DiNapoli, we really can't have more than we have. So sometimes they actually tell municipalities that they have to spend it. or they have to give it back. So over the last few years, we changed a few items to increase. We've had these projects which pay a large substantial amount of fees to the town. We were able to save that. That's why our fund balance is so high. We have roughly a little bit more than 13 million in our fund balance. That's all the fund balances combined with the highway and recreation fund. So that does also include $2 million that the town board transferred into a paving capital reserve fund. So all those together are roughly a little bit more than 13 million. So we will be utilizing 300,000 for the general and 190 for the highway fund. Our New York State fiscal stress score. Every year, New York State posts fiscal stress for any entity that can charge taxes to you, school districts, counties, towns, villages, cities. They manage and show what kind of fiscal stress those entities are under. And they warn those entities saying, you have too high of a fiscal stress score. You have too much money that you're borrowing, etc. They go through the whole thing. The New York State Controller will come down and meet with those people. We have never had a problem here in East Fishkill. The highest fiscal stress score we ever had about 15 years ago was at 9.6, which doesn't even put you on the fiscal stress list. But right now, like last year, our score is 0. You can't get any less, so East Fishkill has 0 fiscal stress. We will have no reduction in services for 2026. Actually, we will be increasing some services at our police department. We will be adding 2 new SROs, school resource officers, that we have been working in collaboration with Wappinger Central School District at their request. We all know that public safety is paramount. We understand that this town board does. And when we do a budget, when I do a budget like this, it is very difficult because public safety is very expensive, but it is very important to our residents, to our businesses, and to our entire community. So the budget that I presented to the town board does reflect that importance. We are maintaining our paving and drainage lines with over $1 million. This is another one which is very tough over the years. This was a line which was very easy for past administrations to take money away when budgets were tight. Unfortunately, they never put money back there. So we did get it up to over $1 million, which we are maintaining. We do have 2 highway bonds that we passed, one in 2021 and one in 2024 for $2 million each. We do have some of that money available as well for paving, which we have used over the last few years. We have been having a very robust paving program, paving more than we have ever, which I can happy to say the town board always wants to make sure that paving is top of the list because we have a lot of roads. We have more roads than any town in Dutchess County. Actually, we have almost as much miles of town road that Dutchess County has, believe it or not. We are the largest town. We have 56 square miles. So the capital, we also have $2 million in the capital reserve fund for paving as well. So also very impressive is our town-wide debt, which is down to about 4.2 million, okay? That includes those $2 million bonds that is out for the highway. So basically, we have almost 0 town-wide debt besides a few $100,000 left besides those bonds. And when you compare that to the budget without special districts, which is about 27 million, it is very impressive. I don't think any other town in Dutchess County could say that they have such an impressive low town-wide debt like that. So, as I said, hats off to my employees, my department heads for managing their departments well. I hope the town board was able to review the budget over the last 2 weeks. I know they've been meeting with the comptroller. And before I get to your questions, why don't I have the comptroller say a few words about our fund balance and some other items?
Yeah, sure. This is just very brief, some comments in addition to the supervisors. This represents our fund balance over the years. 2 things to note. One, that we had a fairly good fund balance in 2010, but had to draw it down during difficult economic times. We've been able to build that back up through prudent budgeting and fiscal restraint to the point where it is now, about $13.5 million. I am projecting over the next several years that we will be drawing it back down. So you're going to start to see this curve reverse itself. But fortunately, we're in a spot where we can withstand a bit of a downfall.
And that's what it's for.
And that's largely what it's for. Some of fund balance is there to provide cash flow early in the year before our revenues start to materialize. Some of it is for one-off projects that may come up, but a big part of it is people generally refer to it as like a rainy day fund, and this is sort of our rainy day, that expenses are just outpacing revenues, and so it's going to allow us several years to shift operations to accommodate that without sacrificing service. That's really, it buys us time to restructure a little bit. Where do your property taxes go? About 76% on average. We have 4 different school districts, and some of the school districts have homestead and non-homestead rates, but the average of all those rates is about 76% of your tax bill. 9% to the county, 11% to the town, 3% to the fire district, and 1% to the library. So, you know, we represent that little blue slice, that 11% of your total property tax payment. Of that blue slice, how do we divide it up? A little over a third goes to each of highway and police, and a little under a third is split between our rec programs and town hall functions. And then just a few things, few comments. As was mentioned, we will be under the tax cap. The town has never exceeded the tax cap. Pension and health insurance costs are going to be increasing significantly. Again, we saw significant increases in 2025, and we're going to see them again in 26.
And can I just make a mention of that? When the controller makes a note that the pension and health insurance costs are expected to increase significantly, that's to the tune of $1 million. Between the two is $1 million. So when you think about a budget of 27 million without the special districts, that's a significant amount. Considering when we increase taxes up to the tax cap, so how much does that equal? That equals about $375,000. So I can bring in $375,000 of new revenue to cover all the increased costs. But the increased cost of just those 2 items is $1 million. So what do? You have to cut the budget. You have to look for other ways to save. Otherwise, it's not a balanced budget, and we always have a balanced budget. So I just want to make that clear.
Sure. There's been a downward trend in mortgage tax revenues, which again works against us in that revenue versus expenditure battle.
And can I make a mention of that to the controller? So there's 3 ways the town sees revenue, major revenue: mortgage tax, sales tax, and taxes from the people. So those are our 3 main avenues of revenue. And when we see a downward trend in sales or mortgage taxes, and obviously there's not a lot of home selling because interest rates are so high. So when interest rates are low, many homes are moving, selling, buying. That's better for the town because we get a piece of that mortgage tax. So those are the times when we see a downward trend, when we understand, thank God we have a wonderful, robust fund balance. That's why we can offset those costs.
Yeah. Just wanted to mention that the Highway Department purchased and is implementing new software, and the value that it will have to the people is it's going to help prioritize which roads to pave, but it's also has a function where it has a plan for repaving. So instead of paving the road and then repaving it at the end of its life, there's guidance for how to do an interim treatment, which will extend the life of the road and reduce the cost when it comes to repaving. And the net total of that is it should be less per mile when we repave as a whole. So this is a way we're able to offset, again, some of these other increases by being more efficient. Also, we have new police officers, and they've enabled us to fill 2 new SRO positions in the Wappinger School District. So again, more service to the town in this upcoming budget. And that's it.
Thank you, Controller. When I open up the town board comments, questions for myself and the Controller.
First of all, Mr. Supervisor, I want to thank you for the overview and also all the work that went into this budget. Thank you to you and the Controller and all the department heads. I know this was a tough budget to put together and to keep the increase down. I think the fact that, we're talking about a year with 3.1% inflation and a 1.6% increase for our residents, that's a good story. Spent a lot of time going through it, and I appreciate the time our Controller spent with me answering all my questions. I think there's, as you mentioned, this is our most important responsibility as a board, the budget, not only now but throughout the year, our fiduciary responsibilities. And a couple of areas that I'm most interested in is paving. And I'm glad you mentioned about the new software program that we have with pavement management. I'm anxious to see what they present to us as far as their assessment of our roads and how that may help, because that's an area that I hear the most from our residents on is paving and what we can do there. You mentioned that on the fund balance, we have a very healthy fund balance. At a certain point, you mentioned that the state requires you to start drawing down if it's too high. At what point is that we would be required to start drawing down?
So they don't have an absolute number. They give guidance, and we use that guidance to determine a number, and we think we're at about that number now. So what they're looking to avoid is basically overtaxing the current population. So you can't build your fund balance. Right now, we have 13 million on roughly, ballpark, a $26 million, which is about 50%. And that's probably higher. That's probably as high as we want to go.
Usually their recommendation is about a third of the budget.
Okay. All right.
But a third for a big city is different than a third for a small town, and so but 35% is a good target.
All right. And as the years go on, it's going to get tighter and tighter, as you mentioned, as the costs continue to go up. We'll start to see the benefits from the pilots, but nonetheless, the costs keep going up. So I think it's incumbent on all of us and to work closely with the department heads to continue to look at their departments, how we can drive efficiencies, new ways of doing work, to continue to look for opportunities for saving money. But I appreciate all the work that went into this. This is a good budget, I think, given the increase in cost. And it's all about trying to find that balance for our residents.
I guess I'm next in line, right?
But you can go however you want.
Councilwoman Flores and I worked actually on some of the highway stuff this year, and you missed a big piece of it. Like, the way they're setting the software up, we're going to better utilize our resources, because they're not just looking at the entire road, they're looking at sections of the road. So a lot of times it might only be a third or a quarter of the road that might need to be repaved. The rest of it could be sealed. So those are things that we're exploring as well, plus the options to keep track of our inventory, our real estate inventory, our facilities, our life safety systems. There's a lot of trigger points on when things come due, both on from a paving standpoint, from vehicle standpoint, so on and so forth. So it's nice to see this happen, because there's huge cost savings across the board. I know it's an initial expense because we had to buy the software, but we're gonna save so much more than what the software cost. I did have a question, Mark. how long is it? We have to fund out of the general fund a month or two of the year until we actually get our income?
Well, yes. So, for the month, particularly January, right, we haven't received all of our, or even much of our property taxes. So we need to fund that, any of our expenses, our salaries, anything we purchase from our fund balance. Yeah.
So we're floating a month or month and a half, whatever it is.
Basically, yes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Yeah, so Mark, again, thank you, Town Supervisor. It's a solid budget. You guys did an excellent work addressing spending. So Mark, basically for this year, I know that the Town Supervisor said that we are putting over $1 million in the paving budget. Is that an actual number or?
Yeah.
So about 800,000?
It's so in that sense, he's talking, we have two different drainage lines. One is the major drainage that we do in association with new roads being paved. So that,
Can't do the paving without the.
Correct.
that's something that we used to have in one line, and we split it out into two lines. But when we talk about paving, we're talking about those two lines combined. In your budget, it's on page
2?
of the highway portion, right? 950,000.
That's a combined.
Yes.
Budget, paving. And then during your presentation, you had used a word talking about fund balance restructuring. Do you mind saying something more about that? I mean, is that something that you foresee in the future?
Well, so if expenses continue to outpace revenues, you have, fund balance will eventually run out. So at that point, you have an option of raising taxes or figuring out a way to reduce expenses. And if you're going to reduce expenses, how can you do it without sacrificing service? So I imagine we're always looking to make things more efficient. That's true in the best of years, it's true in the worst years, but it's a little bit more, there's a little bit more urgency to it over these next few years in anticipation of needing to make a more permanent structural change. So that may be in the form of reduced staffing, if we can do it without sacrificing service. It might be, some of that is just creating efficiency, whether it's through software, whether it's through different processes, whether it's through physically moving people around. So that's what I'm talking about when I say, structural changes to how we do business.
I can expand upon that. So we have little options for revenue. So if the current cost increase are going to the same level year after year, there's at some point where you can't sustain using fund balance, right? So at that point, we either have to break the tax cap or we have to lay people off, because those are our only two options. The largest part of this budget is salaries, just like in any corporation. So as we are going through the budget, doing an analysis for the next few years, depending if these cost increases keep continuing, we might have to look at the point where we might have to lay off 6, 7, maybe 10 people. And that would be police department, highway department, town hall people. And I can't explain better to any of you, because you're here day in and day out. I'm going to ask you, where are the people supposed to go? We have a very good police department. We don't have a substantially large police department for a 56 square mile town. Okay, so we understand public safety, what it means to the public. So these are the decisions we have to make. One flaw of the property tax cap that New York State does, as you heard earlier, I said the last 4 years of inflation, 4.4, 7.8, 4.5, 3.1. Those are real numbers given to us by Tom Donnelly So all those are higher than the 2% tax cap. Why don't they have some sort of number in there for some of this inflation? So all these numbers are over 2%, but we're locked at 2%. You can't raise it past 2%. But if the inflation factor is below 2%, some years, many years ago, was 1.2 or 1.1. Your tax cap now is not 2%. It's 1.2 or 1.1. So it's either 2% or the rate of inflation, whatever's lower. At least the years where it's lower, that we can go up to 2%. So for the years that we have like this, then we won't have any trouble. But those who run New York State, run New York State. I gotta run the town of East Fishkill. Perhaps the residents could call your legislators and call the governor and try to change things because it just doesn't seem reasonable. So we have little avenues to correct that. So was this a tough budget? Yes. But I believe that the next several years will be even harder decisions to be made.
So, Mark, we've been down this road before where pensions and,
Any financial
Especially
capital
pensions.
will tell you the same thing.
yeah, especially pensions. I remember a few years back when we had a tough economy, the pension funds were low and we had to subsidize those funds. And so in your estimation, I know the town supervisor said now that we might have a couple of years of rough time due to the fact that the stock market is doing well, and usually these funds are invested in the stock market.
Yeah.
You honestly feel that maybe we could possibly be better off in the next couple of years?
Can I answer that too? So, when they look at the pension benefit, what it's going to be for all the municipalities in New York State. This year, and they give you the percentage, they give you the number for every municipality. This year, across the board, every municipality will see 15.4.
Roughly 15.3, I think was the...
15.3% increase in pension benefits. They do a 3-year look back at the stock market, and that's because all the funds in the New York State pension are invested in the stock market. They do a 3-year look back and do a trending. So this year with a 15.3% increase, and everybody has the same, everybody's complaining about it, but hopefully next year, because the stock market's been pretty well the last few years, so when we get to next year and the 3-year look back, perhaps it could decrease. That's what we're hoping for, but we don't know. Those are unknowns.
Hope isn't a strategy.
No,
That's our
it
problem.
is not.
Well, and I wasn't expecting a 15.3% increase this year based on the market performance and even with the look back. So there's something that I don't have an answer for that's happened. Maybe they didn't invest at a rate that's equal to the stock market gains. You know, I'm not sure. I don't have all the answers to why the pension increase exists. But even if it flattened off, you know, it's still flattening off at a big number, a much bigger number than it was 3 years ago, you know, so. Or last year, even. I thought, honestly, we were going to be seeing decreases at this point, so, but it's something that's almost entirely beyond our control.
I guess it's a lagging period of the previous investments in the market.
There is a look back, so they're not just looking at this past year or the future.
Adjustment.
Yeah.
And there's also the actuarial investment.
So like 2 or 3 years ago, they changed their actuarial table for life expectancy, and basically, I think they did the right thing. They increased the expected life of the pensioners, and that resulted in an increase in our cost. That seemed fair to me, you know, but, you know, that explains some of it.
And also, I'd just like to remind everyone that our employees must be members of the New York State pension system. It's in the state constitution. We can't shop that around. So that's what it is.
And isn't it guaranteed under the state constitution?
It's guaranteed under the state constitution.
matter what the economy is.
Separate reserve fund.
Right.
It's a separate reserve fund, and it has to be managed by the state controller, and it has to be funded to the actuarial requirements. So in years past, people said, why don't you shop around the pensions, maybe you get something cheap. We can't unless the state constitution is amended.
And I have to say, the state controller, Tom DiNapoli, has done a wonderful job. The New York State pension is the most funded in the entire country. So he does a great job. And he actually, when the New York State tax cap came out, he criticized, saying that certain items shouldn't be in there. But the lawmakers did not listen. And he's the fiscal watchdog of the state. Who knows better than him?
We actually penalized for some of the decision-making that the Albany people do at the end of the day. Thank you, Mark.
Well, thank you guys again for what you've done with the budget. Very good, very, very tough, like you were saying. I guess we can just assume that everything is going to be trending up, right? Because we have no choice. We're required to see around corners and see the future. We have to, right? As best as we can. So we're going to have to find new ways to do things, plain and simple, right? It may be tough at times, and it's going to be, but we have to do what we have to do for the taxpayer. And thanks for being cheap. And I say that, it sounds kind of funny, but thanks for being cheap, because that's part of why we have such a big fund balance. And that's going to help ease the burden, at least for a while, for the taxpayer. And that's important. Because overall,
And I have the chief controller too. So.
everything we do, we are always thinking of ways to be creative and to save money. We all talk to the controller each year. What can we do? How can we save more money and ease that burden for our taxpayer? So we got to get back to work.
Yeah, and I have to say, as we're going through the budget, the comptroller and I spoke to department heads, and very reasonable and very willing to help. Our chief of police, thank you, our highway superintendent. We said next year we're going to have to take a look at certain things, and maybe we have to make some fundamental changes. And they said, well, we'll work together, we'll do it, and it is what it is. We'll make sure that we still have the service for the residents, because, you know, we do run the town like a business, but we have to remember we're not a business, we're a service for the public. We have to make sure that we have adequate service for our residents and our businesses. That's our job.
But we can be more efficient.
Yes, of course, that's always the goal when we're talking about tax dollars, of course.
And just to make it, with the surplus, people might think, why don't you apply more surplus? But we have to remember in times of calamity, the hurricanes that we experience, et cetera, the town has to pay millions of dollars for the cleanup and et cetera until FEMA reimburses us. So as Mark put it, it's a rainy day fund, and it's used for that. And also, if we do get a grant, we have to pay for the project and then get reimbursed. And oftentimes, the state doesn't part with its money as quickly as we like. So there's a lot of uses for that money that if it does get drawn down too low, it gives you issues in operations.
Right, we have to have adequate cash flow.
And we had 2 bridges this year that had to be replaced, and one's being replaced that we were fortunate to get grant money. But it's shocking to see how these bridges that were put in for subdivisions 40, 50 years ago are now $2 and $3 million to replace. And you never really know, it's a ticking time bomb sometimes. You have a general idea when it may fail, but you never know. So that's what that reserve is for, God forbid, something like that.
Right. You know, like the attorney said, that's our rainy day fund, that's our savings. I'm always cognizant to make sure that we never use that for our general operational budget, because does anybody at home use your savings account to go buy your groceries? No. That's there for emergencies, for big items, and we don't do that. We don't use our savings for our general costs. That's not the way you're supposed to run a budget, and we don't do it that way. And, unknown things come up. Last week, we had the alarm go off here, fire alarm at the town hall. What happened, the whole panel got fried. Either it got hit by electricity, I don't know what happened. There was a surge. I mean, the panel was 40-something years old. So this is an emergency. We have to have, by law, we have to make sure So we go and get some quotes. The cheapest is $56,000. $56,000, I could not believe it. But it has to be done. These are things that we are responsible for. Mark, could you put back the tax illustration with the tax rate? I just want to make a comment about that.
That one?
No,
With the house.
yeah. So I just want to make a comment about this illustration. So as I said earlier, the average will be a $20 tax increase with this budget. And as you can see, that's for an average property worth $450,000. And in 2026, that average home is now worth $473,000 because, as people have noted, your assessment goes up. But I want to make sure you see the illustration correctly, because I've said time and time again, your taxes do not go up when your assessment goes up. Your taxes go up when we have to raise the levy, okay? And if you look at the town tax rate in '25 for a $450,000 house, 2.67 was the tax rate. And the same home now, because of assessment increase, is worth $473. But the tax rate went down. Why? Because your assessment went up, and we don't need as much money to have a 2.67 tax rate. So the tax rate goes down. So I just want people to understand that your assessment doesn't mean your taxes go up. When the assessment goes up, and we don't need any more tax dollars, the tax rate goes down. So that's a perfect illustration for all those. We've said this, every year during assessment time, and people go on social media, and, that's the God of all gods, right? That your assessment goes up, taxes are going up. No, it's not true. So I just want to make sure that everybody sees that and understands that.
And just to share another comment, I mean, talking to a lot of community members just recently, there's always, whenever you ask the question, what is the concern for the community, most of the time is the taxes. I would say 90% of the time, people have issues with the taxes. And it's important to say that, like the town comptroller mentioned before, 76 to 78% of our collected property tax go to the schools. So we only collect that amount of money, even though you pay to the town of East Fishkill, we then deliver that money to the schools. We don't keep it.
Just collect it.
Right. So just keep that in mind, community members, that's a reality. I mean, we try to, as much as possible, keep the cost down, and I always say that if the school trustees and our Wappinger School reduced some spending, I was very hopeful that some people could get money back, especially the seniors in our community.
Okay, so any other questions from the board? Please, call or come in, speak to myself or the comptroller. Our town board meeting, October 23rd is our regular voting meeting. That will be our budget public hearing. So please come out and have your questions or concerns. Please come then to ask us.
Can I add something?
Yes.
If you have questions prior to then, too, feel free to come in and see me, or I'm sure
Yeah, of course.
supervisor's door is always open, but
I have one question. When are you going to post this?
Posted on the website, it should be posted.
should be there.
Yeah, it's on, it is on there.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Usually we post it the night I give it to the town board.
I came straight from work, so I didn't check, but thank you.
Okay, next discussion is an application from New York State to New York State for the New York Forward Grant. So several years, I'm sure everybody's heard me talk about the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, the DRI grant that we have been applying for several times. It's a $10 million grant that New York State gives, one per region. And now New York State looks at your community and says, okay, you don't qualify for that grant, you qualify for this grant. And most rural or non-cities, they want you to apply for the New York Forward grant. So we are preparing for that. It's a very large submission. I think several years ago I showed a video that we had to do part for the application because we were one of the finalists in the region. Unfortunately, we didn't get it. We are working with Saratoga Associates, which were our engineering consultants with our master plan, comprehensive master plan. So they know best on what we're looking to do. So basically, this New York Forward grant is like the DRI. It's a little smaller. It's up to $4.5 million. And basically, they look at hamlets and small areas, different neighborhoods, and see what type of projects we're looking for, what we're looking to fund. And basically, we made some kind of a detailed list about certain projects we'd like to apply for. And community engagement is very important here. So we are going to try to have set up, we will have set up for the next town board meeting, kind of boards in the entry of town hall here, and we'll leave them there with the different types of projects we're looking. We want feedback from the community. Please come in. We'll have something for you to write in for each one. Tell us what you feel about that. But basically projects like sidewalks, we have a big senior project coming to town. We like to get sidewalks that are going to connect the hamlet with that. Sidewalks around 376 by here, by the Muse, because we have many people walking on the side of the road. It's not safe. So that was one project. Our new Veterans Memorial Park across the street. We're getting into that. Last night, Councilman Franco and I met with our Veterans Council to discuss this. We hired a consultant architect, and our town engineer, George Cronk, is assisting to get a cost estimate for that. Cost estimates are going through the roof on that. So, and it's a wonderful project. We haven't seen a project like this, and one of the members of our Veterans Council sits on the Dutchess County Veterans Committee, right? Virgil Capillari. He's also a Washington Central School Board trustee. And he says this is going to be one of the best Veterans Memorial Parks in all of Dutchess County. So that will be one project to include in our application. Service Road, right on Route 82 here by Main Street. We've been trying to apply for grants for these roundabouts, everybody knows, to try to help the traffic congestion here in town. We've been successful, but we need more. And part of the main area of Main Street from Trinket to Unity, that was one project that we put in for a mitigation grant for traffic mitigation grant to get those two roundabouts paid for by the state. So part of that project, I'd love to see a service road that goes behind those shopping centers, that goes parallel, what is the road over there? Candy, to go parallel right behind all those businesses. So in the event we do get this grant, that the public can traverse through the town, because that main road will be problematic to traverse. And we got to make sure that these businesses stay open. We have to make sure that they continue to do business, that the people get to their jobs, right? So that would be another, and that's a very expensive endeavor as well. That road, we had projected at almost $2 million just for that road. So these are the type of projects. We said, we wanted to have a fund for facade improvements for all the buildings in the hamlet. People complain that, why can't these buildings make an improvement? Why can't they change their facades? Well, we don't own the buildings. These are private property owners. So perhaps we could put some money in a facade improvement fund where if they are going to redo their entire building, we can help them out somewhat with that. We have continue with our loop trail around the town. We want to try to have more signage all around town improvements at the Depot Park down by the main trailhead. Public art locations, we've been discussing that several times over the years. We can't fit everything out of this budget, unfortunately. So this is a wonderful grant. We've been applying since I've been supervisor for this. It's a big, heavy lift to do it, but we want to get more community engagement. We want to get your ideas. So please come to Town Hall. We'll have it set up by our next town board meeting on October 23rd, and you can give us your feedback, please. Any questions about that? Well, that's all we got for tonight. So our next town board meeting, like I said, is October 23rd, 2025, 6 p.m. is the budget public hearing, so please make sure you're there. A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Birds before. That, that's the highlight of this conversation.